what a pleasure. This is Getting Uncaged on the Apex Predator, the solo part of the show where we talk about the things that matter, sharing tips, tricks, philosophies, and the like in order to lead the generation that we have today and help build them to become better leaders in order to lead the generation that lays in wait for tomorrow. My name is Chris Nell. For all those who have tuned in, I bid you welcome and are new to the show. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's topic, I would like to thank those who have tuned in and have kept abreast on what is cooking on this program and help sharing it around. Be it you've tuned in on YouTube or you've been listening to the audio streams and all the usual suspects from Apple Podcasts to Spotify, and also the other outlets that may exist out there, Amazon Music, Audible, and Podcast One. A favor from me to you, we're trying to get sponsors on the show, and we're trying to get as big a circulation as possible, so help us make the circle bigger by sending this to someone who you may know, who desperately needs a kick in the trunk with the hard talk that we are sharing here. I know I'm not the only one to do it, but it's an honor to help carry the mantle. Now, with regards to today's topic, it's sort of a continuation with regards to what we spoke about the last time on how to overcome bad days, as it were. Lately, there's been a growing number of women whom refer to themselves as the prize, a notion which I deem praiseworthy because I appreciate anybody who consider themselves of higher standard and higher value, because as you know, what you put in, you get out. If you congregate with the dirt, as it were, the swine will ultimately swallow you up. But if you flip the coin and you hang out with people of bigger value rather than lesser value, your value continues to grow, you become more confident, and as a result, you take on a whole new mantle altogether. That said, the big question looms, why aren't men doing the same? So I saw it fit to name this talk, Chase After What Matters. You are the prize. The first thing that I would like to talk about is, it is true, men are the ultimate prize, because if you look at the food chain, men were created first from a theological standpoint, which is the hugest level of honor in terms of nobility, but it also carries the largest amount of responsibility. If you think about Spider-Man, that famous talk that Uncle Ben gives him right before he ultimately passes tragically, in which he says to Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. So it is with we as men, being apex predators. Why do I say it's a huge responsibility? Because first and foremost, you as a man, you protect. Secondly, you provide. Coinciding with these two, it all equals to you demand respect because you have a presence as a result. Now you also hear the tired old saying in any given social circle that even though there are plenty of fish in the sea, I can assure you men of real value are rare. Why? Because of an assumption today that I'd like to think that has existed since the later part of the 2000s, early 2010s, that first and foremost, men and women, I'm sure as well, whom are first and foremost athletically built, just use performing enhancing drugs. That's what gives them their figure. It's an insult, right? And I do agree. Equal to that, geeks, they are agoraphobic. They are people shy, so they just have their nose in the books. It's unfair. The truth is, athletes who are athletically built, as the term proves apropos, are tragically underrated. And geeks, whom are book smart, are tragically underestimated. Names like Elon Musk come to the fore. So, careful with that. Again, I say this because men are the prize. No one has the right, and the two above-mentioned categories that I just expounded upon are included in this argument. You are not a punching bag, nor, this is where responsibility comes in, do you have to treat anyone like a punching bag. In fact, it is severely admonishable should you do, and I'll get to that a little later in the talk. We as men are predators, and because of that we are a rare species in today's social hierarchy. Why do I say that? Because first and foremost, excuse the tongue twister, if you are a leader, you as a leader have the capacity to create another leader through your actions, through your knowledge, through your interpersonal relationships. You can rub off on someone which will inspire them to go for better. As a result, that leads me into the second point. An apex predator uplifts those who are beneath them. They want to see that potential grow. Let's be real honest about this. How do they uplift and how do they help make new leaders? Through adherence to a personal moral code or a philosophy, or put into other words, the outsiders. If you don't follow the crowd, you are more of beating to the beat of your own drum kind of person. That's what I mean with regards to personal moral code or philosophy. It could be through just a couple of examples, through Stoicism. I am a complete disciple of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which is the Bible, as it were, of Stoicism, regardless of the fact that I make a living with my mouth. Or it could be through a laconic bearing, a person who likes to reflect on their actions, and if they feel they've done wrong, they immediately improve it. They don't say it, they show it. But also, if they know that they have done someone wrong in their interpersonal relationship, they will go out of their way to help rectify the matter. I'll stick up my hand there and say I'd like to fall under that category as well. Or any other given philosophy or practice. You can suss that out for yourself. I know that you've got more than one functioning brain cell. So whatever works for you, which improves your performance to such an extent that it goes into the higher category, that will help you make a leader, or at least it will start planting the seed, as it were. I should also mention the other side of the coin to this argument. If you are one of those people, not saying that the entire audience is, that was a joke at my expense as well. If you should feel, or if you know of someone who acts different by means of being autodidactically autocratic, and we've seen a lot of that in the workplace and in the home, what are the disadvantages of it? First and foremost, excuse the middle finger, if it should be on the screen, your business loses profit and it loses resources. Secondly, you lose clients and you sour relationships. Bad luck comes in threes, and it's exactly the same with being an autocrat. And I saw it in my second to last radio job as well. Someone who insisted on being autocratic, it caused the second in charge to act as autocratic. And when 2020 rolled along and Pandora's box opened, everyone, myself included, started leaving in large spades, and the place of employment, as it were, lost copious amounts of revenue overnight. I'd like to go even the furthest extent by saying it lost revenue within a fortnight. Not nice. And I dare say, by making this comment, it's no one else's fault. It's no one else's fault. I'll repeat it for a third time. It's no one else's fault but your own. You have to own it, and you have to eat humble pie, period. So we've covered the good and the bad with regards to being a leader and not being an autocrat. But how are apex predators rare in their personal life? Well, I mentioned, because of the fact that they adopt an outsider mentality and they don't follow the crowd, they think for themselves first and foremost. They mingle with like-minded individuals, like I happened to mention in the intro. They remain teachable and they insist on expanding the mind. How? Through literature. We've got a universe of podcasts out there centered on the topic of self-improvement. Pick one that works for you. They train the body and the mind to act as a cohesive unit. Now, I mentioned earlier on about athletes and geeks. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, William Smith, who has now passed on, Usain Bolt, Kamaru Usman, Richard Fuld. Name any good example. They are either an athlete or they are a geek. But put them together, my goodness, lethal weapon. A Martin Riggs sort of lethal weapon. So train the body and the mind to act as a cohesive unity there. And plus also, and I touched upon this lightly as well, they forgive, but they try not to forget. Folks, this is a hard one for me. I may be young, and I know I hammer on this consistently, but it bears repeating, that a lot of tragedies have happened to me at too much of an early age. But it might not make sense to you now if you were to be in the midst of the opposite mindset, but I hope it catches on for you quickly. That I am grateful for the bad things that have happened to me, because it puts me in a position like with what I am here and now to impart upon you things that I've had to learn the hard way without much guidance, so that you can better yourself as well. Because a lot of us, I'm sorry to say, have been subjected to the thought that everything is going to be hunky-dory, but what we don't or have not been prepared for is the fact that when tragedy strikes, what tools and resources do we have at our disposal? And not have we been taught to act or think independently, nor to start nursing our own wounds, because let's face it, no one's coming to save us. But how do apex predators also act in front of their women? Well, well. I'm going to give you the answers, and I'm not going to say it brazenly. First and foremost, an apex predator and a leader is responsible for making his woman his first priority. And he, by contrast, becomes her first priority. But like with a dance, be it a tango, a mambo, a cha-cha, or just a simple slow dance, you have to make the first move. You have to lead her. You have to involve her. You have to treat her. And yes, I'll even go a step further beyond that and even step beyond the line which is necessary. Don't just copulate your wife. Ravish her. Make your sweat the last thing that she tastes, and man, it's so sweet and bountiful that she can't get enough. And before you get to all that, this second point with regards to your woman is first and foremost imperative. Communicate your mutual needs to one another. Your woman needs a space. She needs safety. She needs a safe space for her to communicate her dreams to you. Out of anyone else that she could have chosen, be it her girlfriends or her family structure, she chose you. So be that anchor for her and help make her vision come alive. And you as a man have no need to be afraid to share your insecurities and your aspirations in the same sentence to your woman, because the ratio is above 90 to 10 that she will be your anchor. But again, referring to the dancing euphemism and example that I used, you have to give the first move. The third point with regards to you being the prize is you have to embrace your uniqueness. And this one took me a long while to accept as well, guys. All of us, hear me well, forget what your psychologist says, forget what your chaplain says, and forget what your family structure says. A force of nature is all of us have different gifts and skills, be it verbally or kinesics or through aesthetics. You're given a unique voice in order to leave an imprint on the world. No one can silence you. I repeat, no one can silence you, but you and you alone. Choose your hard. Ignore the detractors as well as the media detritus. Guys, hear me. I'm a 10-year media veteran. I've worked on every radio format. I covered numerous hard-hitting stories, and I had to butt heads with my bosses so many times about the level of depravity allowed in the air and omitting important details that were actually supposed to go on the air. I know about news censorship, and I'm telling you right now, the media is telling you a bunch of crap. They're telling you a bunch of lies. Don't believe any of it. Speak the truth that lurks in your heart. We all have it. It starts with a niggling feeling, first in the back mind, and then it traverses its way to the very cavern just above your diaphragm where your heart sits. That's where it starts to fester. And much like with the seed analogy that I've used copious amounts of times, you have to either water it or let it wither. But that's the difference between either being a lion or a sheep. Now that brings me to another important part. A lot of young men, and this was especially true of the image that was projected in my mind when I was in school, the moment that you finish your matric diploma, you go on to a tertiary education. Excuse me, I didn't mean to lean away from the microphone so far. You get your tertiary education, you apply for the first job that comes your way, and you're going to be in the pound seats, man. You are going to have it all within the first 6 months. Doesn't happen. Within the history of a given profession and culture of the workplace, it has never happened. But it has created a very pathetic mindset of money is everything in people's minds. I now make not just an assumption, but an educated thought notion But this may even existed to someone before the 2000s, where I've spoken to a lot of business people who say that they love working for themselves for the freedom that it provides and their own office hours. But once they get absolutely verschnocken on alcohol, the first thing that they say is money is everything and it's never enough. I will give you the one thing that is worth more in gold, diamonds, emeralds, and rubies combined. What you should be chasing after is not money, but rather your legacy. A caveat to that I should add as well. Strive for financial freedom, but don't let it control you. I'm a Christian, and I have to say as well, we speak about the spirit of money being mammon. Watch the movie Constantine. You'll find out about who Mammon is. He is the epitome of greed. He's the spirit of greed. But there's nothing wrong with striving to be rich. All the great biblical figures from Job, Moses, Joseph, all of them combined, were given riches because they had the responsibility to be independent of the world, but never dependent on a higher power, mind being God. So strive for that financial freedom, but don't let it control you. Your legacy means more through the involvement in, first and foremost, above your business, your family, then your business, and then the community. Make sure that your house is in order first before you start thinking about trying to help others outside of your home. Honor and charity begins in the home. So we've covered family, your business, and then helping the community. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, in that specific food chain of an order, again, I will be repetitive for perpetuity's sake, you establish presence, you demand respect, and that ultimately leaves an imprint on people for generations to come. You may have noticed this gold wedding band that I'm wearing on my finger for those who are watching. I'm not married, but this gold wedding band used to belong to my late grandfather Jeff, who was a phenomenal man. I never knew him as well as I wanted to. I was living in another part of the state, and I would only see him every second Christmas, and when we eventually moved from one province to the next, I only got to know a more intimate part of him at the end of his life. He was an incredibly studious man who held a service job for his entire working career, raised 4 kids, had a full-time job, often had to work night shift, which was terrible, got his degree in middle age, and when he retired, he took a part of his retirement money, bought a patch of land, smaller than a farm, just above an acre. He wanted to raise dairy cows, and did that with a measure of success. The point is, he did what he loved, but he knew he had to put his priorities first. Throughout his young life, since he was, as I believe from the age of 16, I stand to be corrected, he started investing for his old age, and he could retire rather comfortably when the time came. Every year went out on hunting trips. My grandfather was also the primary example of why I love the wildlife so much and why I love the quiet of the valley. And he also ran for politics, local politics, as a conservative member of the Conservative Party. People to this day, my grandfather, excuse me, to this day, many of the community members to which he served through his local church, Protestant denomination, still talk of him favorably, and that has given me the revelation that a legacy is far more important than what money can ever buy. Your legacy should show your accomplishments and never boast it. Your legacy is most effective when the silence is loud. You don't have to say one word about either how many degrees you've gotten, how much money you have made within a given business year. You never have to say how much money you have spent on this car. Your actions will speak for themselves. Remember, energy flows where faith goes. The wording is a little bit different to someone else's, but that's ultimately the same definition. Energy flows where faith goes, and your actions speak louder than words. Your legacy, another important point, is a monument to never settle for less, alluding to what I said earlier. Strive for bigger, have big dreams, and achieve them no matter how much discouragement you've gotten throughout the fabric of your life, or how degraded comments have come your way. You've still gone all out, man. Your legacy has a net worth based on three things. Quality. I've alluded to that countless sentences now. Prolificity and honor. Alluding to my late grandpa. And then finally, your legacy has the capacity to motivate, captivate your successes as well. So it has the capacity to motivate and captivate your successes, and also to eviscerate your detractors. Many people who have attempted to bring you down will fade into the background, but because you are striving for something bigger than yourself and you're consistently going at it, man, you are hammering it. You are being the best boss around. You are being the best entrepreneur in your community. You are being the best dad that you can possibly be by showing up, and you are being the best partner and lover to your wife. You are in the Hall of Fame, my man. You are in the Hall of Fame. Your name will outlive them. That's why I say, guys, first and foremost, you are the prize. Abolish this current culture of sloth. Don't fall for the same thing that the current culture has you ensnared in. Leave the drugs. Leave the alcohol. Leave the parties. Do the work now. Enjoy it. Get yourself, like I've mentioned on social media, or perhaps as well in a previous episode, start making the uncomfortable fun comfortable. Get into the suffering now and practice delayed gratification to reap the longer term rewards. And continually work on this Pentium 6 here in your dome, and work on your chassis and build your legacy. After all, you're an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit. You are an army of one, an apex predator. Guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget, Marty Bacter, and plus also famed dictionologist to the stars, Rob Kelly, will be my next featured guests. We'll see you next time. God bless.